almost all the time, probably 4 out of 5. Than any place else. I want to thank all of you for your performance. Our performance, our coming together around COVID and the extraordinary, and I think probably best in the nation response over the last year to the COVID experience. And so thank you for doing that. Here's a pitch. If you can get your vaccination, please do. My wife and I are lucky enough to have received our vaccinations, and it's like a sigh of relief knowing that you can hug your grandchildren again and be with others. And so I urge everyone to do that. And as you may know, we did make an adjustment for time for people to become vaccinated. With that, Joan, if there's questions, well, let me do a couple of other things.
Yeah, so I'm going to interrupt you. I think we've had a sound issue.
Oh.
So if you could repeat a few sentences.
Okay. Can you hear anything?
Now. Yeah, fine now.
You can hear it now. So thank you for what you've done in the COVID experience. I appreciate it very much. We've risen to the occasion. We've been driven by science. We've honored civil authority. We turned on a dime to last March, and we've continued that process. We've also made millions of dollars in investment in technology to improve the experience that we are sending out to students. So I want to thank all of you for that. I also want to say that I'm happy to talk about subject matters that are of importance to you. Very heavily involved in the work of unified accreditation. I'm sure that may be a subject, but I also will tell you upfront that on a long-term basis, what I believe we need to do within our system is to stabilize our smaller universities so that they don't become a larger drain on the monies that we get from the state with respect to education, and to grow other institutions. One of those institutions, which I think is primed for growth, is the University of Maine. And we see that in a number of different areas, not the least of which is the greater interest that you're drawing on an out-of-state basis. You are our research university. I look forward to the day when you are obtain or recognized for something I think you already are, quite frankly, an R1 institution. And your president says that publicly. I say it publicly. I understand the difference between a research university and other universities, and happy to talk about those subject matters as well. I am joined by a couple of people. I'll ask them quickly to introduce themselves, and then we'll get to work. Jeff, you want to go first?
Thanks, Chancellor. I'm Jeff St. John, Associate Vice Chancellor for Accreditation and Strategic Initiatives, and I'm happy to be here with you today.
Kim Marie?
Thank you, Chancellor. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kim Jenkins, and I'm the Director of Organizational Effectiveness for our system.
James?
Sure, thanks, Chancellor. I'm Jim Thalen. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Strategic Initiatives and Chief Legal Officer, and I serve as the Chancellor's Chief of Staff in that role.
Thank you. Let me also just say one other thing. A number of weeks ago, I asked of your president that she serve as a vice chancellor status, as well as her University of Maine presidency status, and help us drive innovation and research at all of our universities and look for areas of cooperation that would benefit all of our universities. And she graciously accepted that invitation, and I'm most appreciative for that. With that, John, I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Chancellor, and thanks for your comments. I think one thing, of course, that's on all of our minds all the time is the pandemic and where we are in it and what we've done during it, and incredible leadership from the system, support for all of our campuses to make smart decisions throughout. So the two questions that have come up are in that vein. One is as follows. I know everyone is excited to be back in person in the fall, but will there still be online options available for the students who need it? And the second question, which is related, is will the vaccine be required?
Okay, two questions. I'm going to start with the vaccine, and then you remind me of the first question, Joan, so I'll be ready. We have not required a vaccination, although I will tell you that I certainly urge people to get it. The reason we're not requiring it and haven't considered requiring it is that it does not have normal clearance. It has emergency use clearance. If in the coming months it was to obtain a normal CDC clearance and recommendation, we might very well consider requiring it of individuals who don't otherwise have a condition that would prevent them from being receiving the vaccine. But we're not there, and we've made a decision that without regular clearance and approval, we would not require it. Having said that, I got mine the second I could get it, and was more than happy to get it. By the way, I also got my flu shot in September. I had the flu once about 35 years ago. I was down and out for probably the better part of 10 days, and I have never missed the opportunity to get a flu shot. And by the way, I've never had the flu since then. So an ounce of prevention, I suppose, is what we're talking about. Joan, the first part of the question is, I guess, has to do with, are we going to return to normal? And I think the answer is yes. We believe that we will be largely, or this coming September will be more like every other September or late August, as opposed to the one that we experienced last year. The reality is the bulk of our students, particularly on the undergraduate side, really want in-classroom learning experience. That's obviously true of our out-of-state students who come here from out of state to be with us, but it's true also of the students within the state of Maine who occupy our dormitories on this campus and elsewhere in our system. Does that mean we won't have online learning opportunities? I hope we do. I think we'll have a substantial number. We have seen growing numbers over the years as more and more people become used to the use of that technology. I happen to prefer multiple modality delivery systems so that you can have someone in their dorm room taking your class and somebody in your class taking your class, and perhaps somebody calling it up at a different hour and a different day participating in that class. I do think there are improvements we can make to online learning. I'm not a proponent of static lectures that are given one year and used year after year after year. I'm not too hot on the idea that we don't organize the ability of our students to interact with one another in discussion of topics. So I think that what I would prefer to see is this kind of concept of multiple modality, fresh material, being updated on a regular basis, and real opportunity for students to engage faculty, even if it's done on a distance basis. That would be my preference. Obviously, we also have other programs, academic partnership and competency-based. Those are specific programs which are growing rapidly in our system. They are particularly more appealing to non-traditional students, so not our traditional college age 18 to 22 undergraduates, but people who tend to be mid-career, may have started a degree at one point and now want to finish it. So put that aside. I'm looking for robust offerings, but I would prefer, whenever possible, multiple modality delivery systems of the same course.
Thanks, Chancellor. That's, I think, a very thorough answer to the question. The question did mention, would we be offering the online for the students who need them, which is, I think you touched on that, but is there more you care to say?
Yeah, no, yes, I believe we will. But here's, I'm going to use this part of the thing to get back to my unified accreditation. I look forward to the day when coursework is available at all of our universities to students based on their needs. And that's going to be a lot of work and years to accomplish under unified accreditation. But I think if you think about our system, some of our systems have very high rates of delivery online, and some of our universities have much lower rates of delivery online. We should tap into the strengths of our system and do best by our students wherever they are and whichever campus they would otherwise call home. But yes, I think we'll have robust offerings. But I also think we'll have much more robust offerings of in-person learning opportunities, laboratory possibilities, research possibilities this September than we were able to offer this past September.
Thank you. There are a couple of additional vaccine questions. One is, we've been hearing this in lots of meetings, lots of discussions. Rutgers University has decided to require vaccine, even with the EUA. So the question is, what concerns is it that, what are our concerns? But a complementary question to that is, are the vaccines going to be incentivized for students before coming back in the fall to encourage better numbers?
Well, first of all, I hope that we're going to be able to supply vaccines to all of our students before they leave campus. We're working towards that goal. We're having discussions with Maine CDC. We would encourage our students to do that rather than risk transporting their own potential disease back to other states or becoming infected when they get to those other states when they hadn't been infected here. I think most likely that would be the Johnson & Johnson single dose, because it will be pushed back until probably starting late in April and through graduation time. So obviously we want to encourage it. Some universities have decided to require vaccinations. Those same universities have a much larger cross-section in almost all cases of vaccines than we currently require or are allowed to require under statute. So we are in a different situation. Civil authority has taken somewhat of a different view. And I quite frankly, until such time as there, I got my shot. I encourage everybody to get vaccinated. I was extremely happy to get vaccinated. On the other hand, it has not gone through the normal, rigorous approval process. I think that's going to happen before September. Just today, Pfizer announced that they had tested on younger individuals, I think 12 to 16 at this point, found 100, listen to this, found 100% effective in preventing disease in that group, at least as of the report that was I was able to look at today, peruse today. So I wouldn't be shocked if we end up requiring it, but until such time as it receives a normal approval process and goes through that normal process, which it's working its way through, I don't think we would consider requiring it.
Thank you. I think we're at a bit of a lull in questions. So folks, I encourage you to go ahead and post your questions in the YouTube chat or at the address that Kimberly mentioned.
Kimberly could ask a question if she has one.
I'm sorry?
I said Kimberly could ask a question if she has one. Hey, Jeff, then would you take a moment and talk about one of our undertakings, which is to have a unified catalog, which students, faculty, and staff could have available to them as early as a year from September, and perhaps talk about the importance of that work?
I'd be happy to, Chancellor. We are pursuing, as Chancellor describes, a unified catalog initiative, and it's really a collection of 3 goals, and they all interrelate, and they're all driven by some long-standing challenges facing students and faculty. The first goal is in 2 parts, and the first part of that goal is by September of 2022, we will have all in one place and visible and searchable to all students, faculty, and professional advisors, all of the undergraduate and graduate course offerings delivered across the University of Maine system, so that people can go to one place and find any course offered on any campus, regardless of their home campus. As many of you know, we do currently have a course search function in Main Street, but I think describing it as not optimal is maybe the most diplomatic way to say it. We want to improve it. The second half of the first goal is much more ambitious and will take a significant amount of time and effort, but we are looking at making some major structural improvements to Main Street. As many faculty and advisors already know, right now our student data in Main Street is separated, divided by institution. And in effect, there are digital walls separating the data for the University of Maine from the data for University of Maine at Presque Isle or any other campus. It's very hard to transmit information for students who are involved in multi-campus academic programs, or even for students who are electing to take a course on another campus, not their own campus, across those walls. Instead, what we end up doing is an awful lot of manual, time-consuming record keeping undertaken by faculty, by professional advisors, and by registrars across the system. So we want to make some significant improvements to Main Street. Those are the two parts of goal number one. The second two goals are focused first on students and next on faculty. Goal number two of the Unified Catalog Initiative is to remove barriers that students face on their home campuses, but especially students involved in multi-university academic programs. Process barriers, structural barriers, technical barriers, even cultural barriers, the way practices grow up and express themselves differently on different campuses and have unintended consequences for how easy or hard it is for students to do business on more than one campus. The third goal is to remove barriers facing faculty who are active or would like to be active in multi-university academic programs or partnerships. So for goal number two and goal number three, we're essentially making a big long list of all the barriers facing students and all the barriers facing faculty, grouping those barriers by type and sequencing them, and then knocking them off one after the other until we get them all checked off. Some of the concerns go back decades, some of them are more recent, but they are the types of obstacles that we don't want or believe students and faculty and professional advisors should be facing. We want to clear the field so faculty can make programmatic decisions in consultation with their chairs and directors and deans and provosts as they do now. And so students, as Vice Chancellor Thalen pointed out on an earlier call this morning, so students can tell us where the demand is. What are they interested in? What are the programs that students are telling us could be grown or might be grown? Where are the areas where students can help us understand where the next innovation in undergraduate or graduate academic delivery might be? They're big goals. Again, they're all connected to one another. We'll be forming an academic project team that will have representation from all the campuses and the Maine Law School. There is substantial representation from the University of Maine on that team. And we'll be forming a technical team working alongside the academic team as this work gets underway.
Thank you.
Still not seeing questions. So other topics, Chancellor, that you'd like to raise that people will be interested in?
Obviously, quite excited about the investments that the Harold Oliphant Foundation have made. Obviously, their support for Black Bear Division I athletics and seeking also new facilities around that to promote those athletics, and quite frankly, an emphasis that I think we need to have with respect to facilities around ADA compliance and gender equity are going to be very important. The student success efforts, which are funded to the extent of $20 million, requiring us to raise an additional $25 million, will allow us to concentrate on increasing our retention rate, which we did see a 2% increase from a year ago spring to this past August. Very proud of that increase in retention, but we're going to need to see that rise at all of our universities on a sustained basis. And quite frankly, that's one of the very important ways to grow our student population, is to retain a larger percentage of those students through their sophomore year and then on to their baccalaureate degree granting. So happy about that. Looking at a substantial increase in the provision of engineering, computing, and information science programs in the state of Maine, understanding, as we all do, I think, that our production of engineers in the state of Maine is not keeping is not addressing the needs of Maine and those industries that we can actually attract to our state. So the $75 million investment and the $75 million fundraising or philanthropy or government support is going to be important to that effort to see that happen, and certainly talking about more capital investment as well as we increase the number of students in our system, and particularly at the University of Maine involved in those areas. And then the Maine Graduate Professional Center receiving a commitment of $55 million with a match of $50 million required is really the center around the law school, the MBA program, the Muskie School down at University of Southern Maine, and perhaps other programs, including involvement on the engineering side around a grouping of educational expertise programs that interact with one another. And you might say, well, how's that true? Well, look at the list of Fortune 500 presidents of corporations, and how many of those are engineers who got an MBA degree. It really is quite surprising. So we want to be a center of excellence in graduate education, bringing together those particular fields and perhaps allowing others to be fed in as well as partners in that endeavor. So I think the Maine Public Universities Transforms program, in part led by actually two of the folks who are on my screen, Vice Chancellor Thalen and Vice Chancellor / President of the University of Maine, Joan Farini-Mundy, are heading that implementation, which has to be system-wide and hear all voices. So very excited about that.
Thanks very much. We all are. It is an incredible initiative, and the chance for our universities to do amazing things for the state of Maine here is remarkable. There are now several questions coming in, Chancellor. So some are for Jeff St. John, I think. Is it okay to just kind of convey those coming in two directions a little bit? Jeff, will people be able to easily see classes from just one university? And will faculty have a real role in making Main Street work well for us? Let's go with that one to start.
Yes, Joan, the answer to both of those questions is unequivocally yes. So we want to enhance the ability of students and faculty and advisors to see courses offered at other institutions than their home campus without diminishing their current ability to see the courses offered on their home campus. So the goal is to expand, not to contract in any way. So that it's a yes to that first question. It's a good one. In answer to the second question, again, absolutely yes. We not only want, but must have faculty involved in the development of Unified Catalog at every stage, both on the technical side, when we get to the point where we're ready to show faculty what options are, having first asked faculty what options they would like to see, because we need to understand usability for faculty and for professional advisors, along with usability for students. And then also on the content side, how can we best show what is available? And just to be clear about that, we had a good discussion about this in an earlier call with some faculty today. The Unified Catalog in no way, shape, or form is a merging or lumping together of programs from the different universities. Rather, it's a showing of what is available to students in existing academic programs, undergraduate and graduate offerings across the University of Maine system. We're not merging catalogs, we are unifying and aligning existing catalog offerings so everyone can see them and understand what's available in a simpler and more efficient way. So yes to both those questions, and again, they're both great questions.
Okay, there are some other things that I think are comments and statements. One is great news on removing barriers. Some that come to mind are need for study abroad forms, tuition fees, Main Street issues, e.g. having campuses listed on schedule. The process for multi-campus academic programs, this is someone's comment, is cooperating departments, and the cooperating department structure already solves the problem of classes from other universities being easily available. There is a question, will a course syllabus be available to students? So Jeff, I think there are at least a couple things in there perhaps for your comment. And then there's one for the Chancellor. Does the Chancellor understand the alliance between UMaine and UMaine Machias as a partnership or a merger?
I think it's a work in progress, and clearly, I have visited Machias on a number of occasions. So it is a strong working relationship, allowing that campus to continue delivering education in Washington County, understanding that the population there had dropped significantly. I know that this is a stewardship and making sure that those opportunities remain available to Washington County, the students who are currently there and the students who will choose to go there in the future.
Jeff, I think things for you, maybe mostly notes. Oops, I lost it. Something about syllabi. Will a course syllabus be available to students? This perhaps also is related. Will the Chancellor's Office publish the 20+ data points referred to in the June 2020 NETCHI substantive change application, which currently serve as the criteria by which CAOs engage in the program's examination process? Faculty would like to be aware of the criteria by which their programs are evaluated for suspension, elimination, or cross-campus collaboration or merger. So a couple of syllabus question is a contained one, and then a bigger question on our criteria.
I'll make just two points, Joan, about the matters relating to unified catalog, and then leave it to Jim or the Chancellor to respond to the other item regarding the 2020 substantive change application. Please send me through your CAO or directly yourself or through your faculty senate if you like. Please send me your known barriers in our existing undergraduate and graduate academic process with respect to Main Street or any other facets of the student academic experience. We are actively collecting those lists from faculty now. Secondly, and relatedly, I have shamelessly invited myself in more than one meeting, most recently in the campus, Chancellor's campus visits to UMA and to USM, to attend an upcoming meeting of those campuses' faculty senates. Vice Chancellor Placido and I met with UMA faculty 2 weeks ago. I'm meeting with USM's faculty senate this Friday, very much looking forward to that. I would welcome a chance to speak to any faculty group, to your senate. If I get an invitation, I will run it past your president to make sure she's okay with that, and then happily meet with a senate or other faculty group to talk about any facet of this work, to solicit your input, your ideas, your feedback. This is the Unified Catalog Initiative, like every other Unified Accreditation Initiative, is going to be open and transparent.
Jim, you want to answer the question on Unified Accreditation?
Sure, and I understand that question to be primarily focused, though, on the programs for examination process and how it is managed through the system Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs Office. Because of that, it doesn't fall within my direct portfolio, but I do know it is a very data-driven, data-intensive process over a period of time involving each university's chief academic officer, provost, the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. And there's nothing that I know of that prevents us from being fully transparent through each university to the data that's shared for the CAOC to decide, for each university to decide how they want to manage the programs in their own academic inventory. Joan, if I might kick it over to you, I know that you and I have had some conversations about that data and how it works, and I invite your comment on that as well.
Yeah, certainly. And Jim's described it as it's working, as it happens. These are called programs for examination. And I think if Vice Chancellor Placido were here, he would say examination can mean celebration. It can mean the opportunity to show growth and to highlight that and to feature it, as well as to look for opportunities for other kinds of realignments or challenges that programs may be facing based on the data. So we'd be happy. What we could do is do a town hall here on this campus with Provost Volin, who works with us, who manages that process on this end, as well as with head of campus Dan Qualls at Machias, so that we can share exactly what happens in that process. It's a large list of variables, and we have the option to even add some more of our own. that we look at to try to get a picture, an accurate and thorough picture of a program. But we're very happy to be quite transparent about all of that. It's been developing a bit over the past few months. It hasn't been fully, I think, finalized, but that's a great topic. There are a couple more, several more unified accreditation kinds of questions. So why don't I read them and then you all can decide where we'd like to go. If students start taking a significant fraction of their courses from other campuses, would it make sense to merge faculty bodies? And so there's one. Won't the unified catalog result in the cannibalization of programs at smaller campuses as students shop to take courses outside their residential programs?
So, I think a couple of things going on. I suspect that most students will want to take most of their courses with the university that they're affiliated with. On the other hand, a number of our universities allow students to, in some cases, design their own concentration or their own major. And the ability to do that on a multi-campus basis probably makes a lot of sense. But someone's not going to go to the University of Maine and take the majority of their courses at some other university. That, it just isn't as. There's nothing in our experience or other experiences that would indicate that that would be the case. On the other hand, there are the opportunities for smaller universities that may not be able to offer as wide a selection of courses to allow students to have that wider selection possibility based on conditions and agreements that would have to be reached in the future. What my goal is to stabilize the smaller universities. That is a combination of trying to attract as many students to those institutions as we can, but understand that some of those institutions are not located as and easy to get to, and I have already suffered a demographic driven damage on those campuses. Sustaining those campuses and stabilizing them so that they don't become a bigger draw in many ways is going to be important. We want to work with those institutions to do that. Likewise, we want to see those institutions that are poised for growth actually accomplish that growth. Obviously, that's more operating dollars for each of those or any of our universities that grow their population. And by and large, those decisions on how to spend that money is made by on those campuses. So we look forward to doing that. What I would say to you is, why not give students that opportunity? Particularly, we can build protections and for situations that might potentially, but I doubt will present themselves. And there are a lot of decisions that will need to be made. One of the things that I frequently hear from faculty and students who have actually tried to move from university to university, we're not as student-centered as we think we are. Our students are not as satisfied with the ability to do the things that we think they should be allowed to do already. And usually faculty members complain as well about the number of steps necessary to allow things to happen. And so we're trying to make this a more student-centered approach and more opportunities presented and more area and space for multi-campus collaborations to excel.
Thanks, Chancellor.
There was a question about syllabus, which I didn't answer. I would, again, I think students should understand the content that they're being asked to address. I personally believe, that's a personal belief, from a guy who's bought a lot of cars and never one without driving one, that students should be reflecting on the actual subject matter to be taught in a course as opposed to the title of the course.
Thanks. Thank you. Shifting gears a little, but not entirely, because this conversation to me really is about inclusion and access. But the question here, Chancellor, is in light of the Board of Trustees' recent emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. What concrete actions will we be seeing in that area?
Well, first of all, we brought that issue to the trustees, raised that issue. Very happy to have received direction to set up a panel to oversee those efforts and step up those efforts and make them central to what we do going forward. And that is our intention. I believe the board will it wants to see that work be undertaken by us and specifically ordained that to happen. But I will also point out to you that it is the system that brought that issue to the Board of Trustees, and very proud to have received that direction from them. So it's a work in progress. I think we have to examine our practices. We have examined our practices. We probably understand that broader advertising, for instance, of staff and faculty positions is more likely to garner more diverse applications. We need to step that issue up. We need to be mindful of the difficulties that historically some groups, including women, as a group, have suffered from and under. And we just need to make it really quite central in our considerations going forward.
I would add to that on this campus, we have a President's Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, co-chaired by Kimberly Whitehead, who's with us today, and Susan McKay. That has already produced a set of recommendations. We're moving through those, considering them. The first thing that everyone will see, and it might be today or maybe tomorrow, will be an announcement concerning hiring of faculty and certain other positions. A great detailed guidance about what we now will be expecting of hiring committees in terms of how they will advertise, how they will network and seek a broad diversity of candidates, how pools will be characterized, and then how we'll make decisions about whether those searches go forward. So that's coming very soon on this campus. The expectations that are typical in many places, actually, so that we'll see. There are two questions that we're not going to.
Can I just say one thing, Joan? I remember the day that I got Dr. Whitehead's that group's recommendations, and sent her a note congratulating her and thanking her for that work. And it is in part based on that work that I asked for a specific directive from the trustees with respect to how we proceed.
Great, thank you, thank you. There are two really detailed questions that one of them is very UMaine specific, and I'll just read it, but we won't have time. But if the faculty member who's writing it will be in touch with me, we'll figure out a way to have a broader discussion on this topic. The person says, not to be difficult, but with the dramatic increase in administrative positions being adopted by faculty, and then he mentions some AVPR, associate provost, these not only cost a lot of salary, but have an enormous impact on our faculty numbers and ability to teach classes and conduct research, which are presumably the purpose of a university. In my department, we've lost 2 biomedical research faculty. In another department, they've lost 4. Yet out of these 6, only 1 is being replaced. What is the truth? Get the sense of this question. A very serious question that I would like to take up with folks. A piece of the answer, I believe you will find in the fiscal 22 budget proposal, which was made public to the Board of Trustees last week. So some of this we'll take up when we do our budget forum, which I believe is coming. But we really are, the question really is, how are we going to get to R1 status without increasing faculty? And our provost has a clear plan on that front. The other question is general, it's transforms, and maybe it's another one we can take up more locally, because I'd like to end with this one for the Chancellor. What are the current strategies for attracting and keeping Maine students in Maine? Are there any new initiatives focused on this?
The thing most likely to keep a student in Maine is for them to receive their education in Maine. We are the largest recipient of high school graduates from Maine. The second biggest way to attract a workforce in Maine is to have out-of-state students receive their degrees at one of our universities. We know that the retention rate there is higher than and easier to retain than inviting someone who has no connection to Maine. So I think our role as a public university system with respect to Maine high school graduates, which is our primary population, is extremely important. It's why, for instance, we stepped up efforts this year to reach out to high school students who weren't getting support at their high schools, or the level of support for their high schools, which clearly were overburdened by the pandemic experience. Starting in January, we stepped up our efforts very significantly with respect to Maine students, because we were behind by 15 or 16% in applications as late as the second week of January. We have largely closed that gap through initiatives that we undertook with guidance counselors, school systems, our own online opportunities for students to touch and see all of our universities at one time, and to speak to people from any of the universities that they were interested in. I think one of the most interesting things we've done this year, our system had a history of not telling students when they were accepted at our universities what their financial package based on their terms and the information they were supplying would be till months later. Which meant that student remained marketable, if you will, or had an open invitation to consider other schools. We've seen a marked increase in matriculations, in part because we were able to represent to students what their financial obligations would be at the beginning of the process, not at the end of the process. And our matriculations are very strong, running about 14 days in advance of what we did in the most recent years. So on the matriculation side, even when we had fewer applications, particularly coming from in-state, we were still running ahead as many as 20 to 25 days. So I think we've turned it around. I think we understand our relationship in the state of Maine. I think we've used the COVID-19 experience to explain to the people of the state of Maine to a higher degree the importance of a research university and a university system in combating the COVID experience.
Thank you. So we are just past 10:30. We did start a minute or two late. Chancellor, can you take one more question?
Sure.
Okay, because this one seems like a UMaine-ish specific question. Will there be any adjustment on who is allowed to be a TA? Some of the lab TAs have made certain classes a horrible experience, not just for me, but for the whole class. We're very focused on quality of instruction, on providing support and professional development for TAs. So thank you for that. What I'm hearing about our TAs is the vast majority of them are phenomenal, but we will hear more from you, I'm sure, on this. So these two, Chancellor, I think maybe we'll make these the last ones.
All right.
And they're sort of complementary to each other. If equity is central to the system's work, ought our vision for the small campuses reach beyond merely stabilizing them so that they do not drain resources from the larger schools? And a separate question, since state appropriations are so vital to our system's thriving, it seems an important KPI should be uplifting these communities despite and indeed because of their declining demographics.
So a couple of things. Retention is one of the ways to resolve the lack of students going forward. We spend a lot of money, $18 million a year, to attract students to our institutions. And some of our institutions then lose 40% of those students over the course of 24 months. We have to do a better job on retention. And if that means additional outreach and help to students being provided, the Alpha on money should help in that regard. So retention is a road to growth. Obviously, I want every one of those smaller universities to get quality students in their programs and to grow those programs. On the other hand, I can't ignore the fact that we have programs that have shrunk by 27% in a relatively short period of time. That's not stable. And what we have to do is make sure that our faculty-student ratios are aligned appropriately, that programs are aligned appropriately, that programs that might be more successful in attracting students are examined on a regular basis. I spend a lot of time. I look at the numbers every single day. and that are available to me with respect to applications, matriculations, retentions on a semester to semester, year to year basis. Celebrate the fact that we had a 2% increase in a single year. I don't know whether I doubt that we'll repeat that in the with a full year of the pandemic, but we need to get back on the road and easily increase retention by at least 1% per year for the next 10 years.
With that, I think we'll bring this to a close. I'd like to thank the Chancellor and his team. Great conversation, as you can see, many questions, many good ideas here, and we invite you to come back and talk to us at Maine anytime.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.